All right, everyone. Get ready for a deep dive today.
Oh.
Into the world of demonology.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, we are going to unpack everything we can about Beelzebub.
Okay.
From this mythology.net article we have. You might just think, oh, Beelzebub, just another one of the many devils.
Yeah.
But there is more to him.
Oh, there is a lot more.
Than meets the eye.
It's really fascinating how his story really gets into this whole idea of power dynamics and how we're obsessed, even in the supernatural realm, with who's calling the shots.
Okay, so starting with the basics.
Sure.
The article mentions that he's pretty high up there in the hierarchy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Of hell.
He's generally considered second only to Satan himself.
Whoa.
In terms of power and influence.
Okay.
And there are even some sources that place him as an equal to Satan.
Really?
Or even as the supreme ruler of hell.
So even above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a powerful, powerful demon.
Talk about a power struggle. Yeah. But here's the thing. This article also calls him Lord of Dung and God of Filth.
Right.
Those aren't exactly flattering titles for someone. So powerful are they?
No, they're not. But those nicknames actually reveal a really interesting shift in how Beelzebub was perceived over time.
Okay.
And to understand that shift, we need to go back to his origins.
Okay.
He started out as Beelzebub.
Hold on.
A Philistine god worshipped in ancient times.
A god. So how did this respected deity end up being associated with, well, garbage?
It's a classic example of demonization.
Okay.
As Jewish monotheism gained prominence, the gods of other religions were often recast as demonic figures.
So it was a way to solidify the belief in one god.
Exactly.
Portraying other deities.
As evil.
As bad, as evil.
Yes.
Basically a religious power move.
Precisely.
And the interesting part is Zebub, the Zebub part of his name was originally an honorific, like calling someone prince or something.
Oh. Yes, exactly. Kind of like calling someone prince or giving them some sort of title of respect.
And then so as the Philistine god was demonized, that honorific became associated with everything unclean.
Exactly. Yeah, I got twisted.
So it makes you wonder how many other figures throughout history have gone through a similar transformation from respected deity to demonized outcast.
Yeah, and it happens all the time.
And it really speaks to how stories and perceptions can be manipulated to serve different agendas.
Especially when it comes to religion,
Wow. Okay, so diving deeper into this whole unclean thing.
Okay.
The article mentions a possible connection between Beelzebub and these fly cults.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of those?
I don't have specific information on fly cults from this article, but it does point to a very specific and fascinating aspect of Beelzebub.
Okay.
Which is his association with flies.
Okay, I have to admit, even the word flies makes me a little squeamish.
Right.
Why would this powerful demon be connected to something so, well, annoying and gross?
The symbolism of flies is really key here.
Okay.
In ancient times, flies were associated with decay, disease, and death.
Okay.
And this goes back to the belief in spontaneous generation, where people thought that flies magically emerged from rotting matter.
So they were seen as coming from decay, and then they became symbols of it?
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that connection to decay and corruption made Beelzebub's association with flies even more sinister. You know, it wasn't just about them being annoying.
Right.
It was about them representing the breakdown of order, the perversion of creation.
Okay, so the article also says that when summoned, Beelzebub prefers to appear as a fly.
Right.
Why would a powerful demon choose such a seemingly insignificant form? Wouldn't something more terrifying be more effective?
It's such an interesting choice of form, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, it kind of reinforces that link to decay and the subversion of creation that we just talked about.
Right.
But on the other hand, it could also be a very deliberate tactic.
To deceive people.
Imagine, you think you're dealing with a harmless fly, when in reality, it's one of the most powerful demons in existence.
Oh, wow.
It could be a way for Beelzebub to catch people off guard, to infiltrate and corrupt from within.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty clever.
Yeah.
And a little bit terrifying.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of Beelzebub's powers.
Yeah.
The article highlights his specialty, possession.
Okay.
He apparently started by inhabiting idols.
Right.
To deceive worshippers.
Uh-huh.
But then moved on to possessing actual humans.
Yes. And this idea of demonic possession has a long and complex history.
It does.
The article mentioned some really chilling cases like Annalise Michel and the Salem witch trials too.
Oh, wow.
Accusations of demonic possession and Beelzebub's involvement specifically have popped up throughout history.
It's wild to think that people genuinely believed in this stuff. But then again, they didn't have the scientific understanding we have today to explain certain phenomena.
Absolutely. Back then, demonic possession was often used to explain the unexplainable.
Yeah.
Whether it was mental illness, physical ailments,
right,
or even just strange behavior that people didn't understand.
And it wasn't just ordinary people who were accused of being possessed.
No.
The article mentions that even Jesus was accused of working with Beelzebub.
Yes.
That's a pretty serious accusation.
A very serious accusation.
Imagine accusing someone of being in league with the devil.
Right, and accusing someone of being in league with the devil has been a very powerful tactic throughout history to discredit and undermine their authority.
Especially if they were challenging the status quo or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not just about the supernatural. It's about using fear and superstition to control people and maintain power.
Exactly, and that's something that's still relevant today.
Wow.
Even if we don't talk about demonic possession in the same way.
How so?
Well, think about how certain groups or individuals are demonized.
Right.
In the media or in political discourse.
It's like a modern-day witch hunt, using fear and prejudice to target people who are seen as different or threatening.
Precisely. And understanding the historical context of figures like Beelzebub can actually help us make sense of these patterns.
Oh, okay.
And how they continue to play out in our own world.
It's amazing how a deep dive into demonology can lead to insights about human nature.
Yes.
And the ways we've used fear and superstition throughout history.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It is.
How these things all connect.
It all comes back to us somehow.
Yeah.
All right. So what's also fascinating is that despite all this, Beelzebub remained a relatively obscure figure until the 16th century.
Yeah.
Why do you think there was such a sudden surge?
That's a good question.
In interest then?
Well, according to the article, that's when theologians and occultists became obsessed with mapping out the hierarchy of hell.
So they were basically trying to create a bureaucratic system for hell.
It sounds strange, doesn't it?
It does.
But it speaks to this very human need for order and understanding, even when dealing with the supernatural and the unknown.
Even in the face of chaos.
Exactly.
I want to make it organized.
You want to categorize and rank things to create systems and hierarchies.
And Beelzebub, with his power and infamy, was a prime candidate for this demonic ranking system.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this obsession with mapping out hell wasn't just an academic exercise, right?
No, not at all.
It had real-world implications.
It did.
How so?
Well, by understanding the hierarchy of hell and the specific powers of each demon, theologians and occultists believed they could better protect themselves from demonic influence. And even gain a measure of control over the supernatural realm.
So it's like the more you know about the enemy, the better equipped you are to fight them.
Exactly.
And this fascination with Beelzebub's place in the demonic hierarchy helps solidify his place in popular culture.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the article mentions a few of his famous literary cameos.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Dante's Inferno, Milton's Paradise Lost, and Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Those works really catapulted him into being a major player in the Western imagination.
They gave him a face, a personality, and cemented his reputation as a powerful and cunning adversary.
Okay, so it's amazing how a figure who started as a Philistine god ended up as one of literature's most notorious demons.
It really is, and it's a testament to the power of storytelling.
Right?
And how narratives can evolve and transform over time.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From Beelzebub's origins as a god, to his demonization, to his association with flies, and his rise to fame in literature. But what I'm really curious about is, what does all of this mean for us today?
That's a great question.
Why should we care about a demon who's seemingly faded into obscurity?
Well, even though Beelzebub's role has diminished in modern times, the themes his story embodies are still very much alive.
What themes are you thinking of?
Power, deception, the struggle between good and evil.
No.
These are timeless themes that resonate across cultures and eras.
And it's like Beelzebub's story is a mirror reflecting back at us our own anxieties and fascinations.
Absolutely. And I think there's even more to unpack here.
Okay.
Particularly when we consider the symbolism of flies.
Okay.
And what it might say about the subtle, insidious forces at play in our own world.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Let's do it.
Let's dive deeper into that in part 2.
Right.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about how even though Beelzebub might seem like a figure from the distant past,
Right.
the themes that his story represents were still incredibly relevant today.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the most intriguing aspects, for me at least, is this connection to flies.
Yeah, it's not just about them being gross, it's about what they represent.
Okay, remind me, what exactly is so symbolic about flies in relation to Beelzebub?
Well, as we discussed, flies have long been associated with decay, disease, and the breakdown of order. They're these tiny creatures that can infiltrate and corrupt even the most seemingly solid structures.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, you can't swat every fly.
Right.
It's like no matter how much you try to keep things clean and in order, there's always going to be that element of chaos creeping in.
Precisely. And Beelzebub, in his association with flies, really embodies that principle.
Okay.
He represents those unseen forces that can undermine and corrupt from within, even in the most unexpected ways.
Like a metaphor for the challenges we face in everyday life, right? Like no matter how hard you try and maintain control, there are always going to be those little annoyances, those little unexpected setbacks that can throw us off balance.
Absolutely. And sometimes those flies can be more than just annoyances.
Yeah.
They can represent real threats, real sources of decay and corruption.
Right.
They can have a significant impact on our lives.
And I'm also struck by how Beelzebub's story really challenges our assumptions about power.
Yes.
We tend to think of powerful figures as being imposing and intimidating.
Yeah.
But Beelzebub chooses to appear as a fly. Like, it's so counterintuitive.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant subversion of expectations.
Yeah.
It makes us reconsider our preconceived notions about what power looks like and where it comes from.
Because sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones that catch us off guard.
Right.
You know, the ones that we underestimate or dismiss as insignificant.
Precisely. And Beelzebub's choice of form really underscores that point.
Right.
A tiny fly can be just as dangerous, if not more so, than a fire-breathing monster, because it can slip past our defenses unnoticed.
Thinking about the examples of possession mentioned in the article, it's chilling to realize how these accusations of demonic influence have been used throughout history to explain the unexplainable.
It's true.
To control those who are different or to scapegoat individuals for societal problems.
It's a dark side of human nature that, unfortunately, we still see today.
We do.
Even though we may not talk about demonic possession in the same way, we still see instances of individuals or groups being demonized and scapegoated.
Like when people are labeled as evil or dangerous without any real evidence, just because they hold different beliefs.
Yeah, or come from a different background.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of rhetoric can have very real and damaging consequences.
Absolutely.
It can lead to discrimination, persecution, and even violence.
Yes, it's like Beelzebub's story is a cautionary tale.
It is.
About the dangers of fear, prejudice, and misuse of power.
And it reminds us to be critical thinkers, to question assumptions, and to be wary of those who seek to exploit our fears for their own gain.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of empathy and understanding.
Okay.
You know, we need to be willing to see the world from other people's perspectives.
Even if those perspectives differ from our own.
Even if those perspectives are different from our own.
Yeah, because sometimes the things we fear the most are simply things that we don't understand.
That's true.
That's a really good point.
And by taking the time to learn and understand, we can overcome those fears and build bridges instead of walls.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I think so too.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on not just Beelzebub, but also the broader themes that his story represents.
It's amazing, isn't it? How these ancient myths and legends can offer a window into the human psyche. And they can reveal our fears, our aspirations, and our enduring quest to understand the world around us.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us today? Why should we care about a demon who's seemingly faded into obscurity?
Because the themes Beelzebub embodies are still very much alive.
Okay.
We see them in the power struggles that shape our societies.
Yeah.
In the misinformation that spreads like wildfire.
Right.
And in the ongoing battle between those who seek to exploit others and those who fight for justice and equality.
Wow, I never thought I'd find so much depth in a story.
It's true.
About a demon known as the Lord of Dung.
It just goes to show that even in the darkest corners of mythology, there are valuable lessons to be learned and insights to be gained. It all depends on how deeply we're willing to dive.
You know, before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm still curious about.
Okay.
The article mentions that Beelzebub's role has diminished in modern times.
Right.
But why do you think that is?
Well, there are a few possible explanations. The rise of secularism and scientific thinking has certainly played a part.
Makes sense.
As our understanding of the world has evolved, the need for supernatural explanations has diminished.
Yeah, we're less likely to attribute things we don't understand to demons or other supernatural forces.
Exactly. And additionally, the figure of Satan has become the dominant representation of evil in popular culture.
Okay.
Really eclipsing other demonic figures like Beelzebub.
So he's become the go-to bad guy.
Yeah, he's the ultimate symbol of evil.
He's like a one-size-fits-all villain.
He is
while Beelzebub is more of a specialist.
That's a great way to put it.
And maybe there's another reason for Beelzebub's decline in popularity.
Yeah.
His association with decay and disease.
Right.
Might be a little too unsettling.
It might be.
For our modern sensibilities.
You know, we're obsessed with cleanliness and hygiene.
Right.
Yet we're constantly bombarded with images of violence and destruction in the media.
So maybe we're more comfortable with the idea of outright evil embodied by Satan.
As embodied by Satan, right?
And the more subtle, insidious forms of corruption.
It's a slow burn
that
Beelzebub represents.
It's almost as if his story hits a little too close to home.
Yeah.
Reminding us of the fragility of our own bodies and the ever-present threat of illness and death.
That's a very thought-provoking idea.
It is.
Maybe Beelzebub's decline in popularity reflects a deeper societal shift.
Okay.
A desire to distance ourselves from the uncomfortable realities of our own mortality.
This deep dive has really taken us down some unexpected paths.
It has.
We've explored history, religion, literature, psychology, and even our own fears and fascinations.
It's a testament to the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
To connect seemingly disparate ideas and to illuminate the complexities of the human experience.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Beelzebub, what's the one takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that even in the realm of mythology, there's always more to discover beneath the surface. Don't be afraid to question assumptions, to explore the complexities, and to draw your own conclusions.
That's great advice. And it's applicable not just to our understanding of Beelzebub, but to our approach to knowledge and learning in general.
Absolutely. Curiosity, critical thinking, a willingness to embrace ambiguity.
Okay.
These are the tools that will allow us to navigate this ever-expanding world of information and ideas.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from Beelzebub's origins as a Philistine god to his transformation into a powerful demon. We've explored the many facets of his story and the enduring themes he embodies.
Absolutely. And we've hopefully sparked some thought-provoking questions along the way. Questions about power, perception, the nature of good and evil, and the enduring relevance of mythology in our modern world.
And I'm sure our listeners have some thought-provoking answers to those questions.
I bet they do.
But we'll have to save that discussion for another time.
Indeed. It seems we've reached the end of another deep dive.
We have.
But before we go, I'd like to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder.
I'm all ears. What is this final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, we've been talking about Beelzebub as this, the embodiment of decay and subversion of creation.
Right, the whole Lord of the Flies thing.
Exactly. So the question I would like to pose is, where do you see those forces at play in the world today? What are the subtle flies that might be buzzing around, threatening to undermine the things we value?
That's a good one. It's almost like a challenge to apply what we've learned about Beelzebub to our own lives.
Exactly. And it could be anything, from the spread of misinformation to the erosion of trust in institutions,
or even just little negative thoughts that can creep into our minds and undermine our confidence.
That's a great example. It's all about recognizing those insidious forces
and
then being proactive about addressing them before they can take root and spread.
So it's like Beelzebub is a cautionary tale, reminding us to be vigilant and not to take things for granted.
Exactly. And it encourages us to be discerning.
Yeah.
To question what we see and hear and be critical thinkers.
Because sometimes the most dangerous flies are the ones disguised as something appealing or harmless.
Absolutely. It's all about looking beneath the surface, questioning our assumptions, and being willing to see things from multiple perspectives.
This whole deep dive has really made me think about the power of stories.
Yeah.
How they can not only entertain, but also challenge our thinking and help us understand the world around us in a new way.
I completely agree. Beelzebub's story in particular is so rich with symbolism and meaning. It's a story that continues to resonate even centuries after it was first told.
And it's amazing how we started with what seemed like a straightforward topic.
I know.
A demon.
Right.
And we ended up exploring all these complex themes about power, perception, the nature of good and evil, and even our own fears and anxieties.
It just goes to show that you never know where a good deep dive will take you.
Oh, I've certainly learned a lot today, and I hope our listeners have too. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of Beelzebub and all the thought-provoking ideas his story has inspired.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, and don't let those flies get you down.